In this slideshow, I'm going to be talking about the weak aorist. And of course, you'll remember that the way I'm defining strong versus weak aorists is the weak aorists do what is expected according to the pattern of their principal parts, whereas the strong aorists do whatever they want. They do the unexpected. So we've spent a lot of time on the strong aorists since they are the ones that are going to deviate from the path, and now we're going to look at the weak aorists. So we'll go back to this slide where I point out that what's happening with the weak aorist is that you're taking the stem and you're adding a sigma, and then this might interact with whatever's already on the stem. And so we can see here that, say something like blapto, this consonant combination, adding a sigma is going to give us blapso. Similarly, we can go down the list and see angelo. Apparently, when you add the sigma, the linguistic response is angela or angel, right? But the most efficient way to remember this is just to memorize the principal parts, right? Because then you have your aorist stem and you know what you're doing. Okay, and so what are the endings then for the weak aorist? Well, the weak aorist endings are a in the active are a, as, e, amen, ate, an. And in the middle, amen, o, and you'll see that o is really aso. So o, ato, ametha, asthe, anto. So when we look at the contract verbs, we can see that we'll take their principal part. It's easier just to go to the principal part for that contract verb and then add the endings on. So here we have a synopsis of the contract verbs with timao, phileo, delao, and therao. Okay, and so we have in the aorist here, this is the weak aorist, etimesa. That's going to be the principal part, etimesa. Etimesa. And then in the middle, etimesamein. Phileo, ephilesa, ephilesamein. Delao, edelosa, edelosamein. Therao, teraso, and it's part of that row group, teraso, so eterasa, and then eterasamein. Okay, what about me verbs? Turns out that me verbs actually become very regular in the sense that they become exactly like the weak aorist. If they're weak aorist in the me verbs, they actually are just like omega weak aorists. So here we have dekanumi, which has a weak aorist. So it's going to have your sigma, which produces the xi, and then you're going to have your augment. Similarly, histemi has both the weak and the strong. Well, in the case of the weak aorist, it's going to have the stase, and you're going to attach your augment onto that. So let's see what that looks like. Here we have for dekanumi, edeksa, which is going to be that principal part anyway. And so that tells you that, okay, it conjugates edeksa, edeksas, edekse, edeksamen, edeksate, edeksan. And with the histemi, make stand. So this, remember, the strong aorist is going to be the causative, the one that has an object. So this is I make something stand. So I made it stand up, I guess. Estesa, estesas, estese, estesamen, estesate, estesan. Okay. So, of course, we've got the strong, I want to review the strong aorist me verbs, the wacky ones, the three wacky ones, which are tithemi, didomi, and hiemi. Tithemi, hiemi, didomi, tithemi, didomi, hiemi. Those three are the wacky ones. And you'll know because the principal part will indicate that. Okay, so here we have tithemi, hiemi, didomi. And they misbehave in the aorist. And so we get the aorist principal part is going to be etheka for tithemi, afeka for hiemi, and edoka for didomi. So with tithemi, etheka, ethekas, etheke, ethemen, ethete, ethesan. Now with hiemi, the issue here is, why is it afeka? Is because we don't really see hiemi without a preposition, so in this case apo, in the aorist. So there's usually some kind of preposition. Epi, apo tends to be the most common, that's why it's usually the paradigm. So, but if we were just really going to look at what the real root is, you can see here they've marked it as ache, the hake, right? So I'll underline that. Hake, that's the real root. But here we're just, because of the fact that we don't really see hiemi in the aorist as a simple form of the verb, but it's usually a compound with a prefix, a preposition prefix, then that's what we get here. And so we have afeka, afekas, afeke, afemen, afeta, afesan. Now didomi, again, where the stem is edoka, so dok is going to be your stem here. So edoka, edokas, edoke, but then in the plural, edomen, edote, edosan. And as we looked at last time, so when we go to the middle of these three independently minded me verbs, we see that they're actually going to behave like, again, a combination of a me verb with the weak endings. So here, the secondary endings, men, so ethemen, and ethu, remember, is saw, or saw, right? But here, they're actually, in the second person, it's behaving as if it's like an omega verb where we would combine the saw and get u, right? So here, etheta, ethemetha, ethestha, ethenta. Here you can see, well, aphiemi becomes aphemein, and then aphesaw. So it's following what we expected. Apheta, aphemetha, aphestha, aphenta. And then didomi is edomain, edu, as opposed to edosol, right? Edu, edota, edometha, edostha, edonta. Right? So these three just have to be memorized because of the fact that they go off the rails, especially in the singular. They are not going to follow what might be immediately expected, and especially in the second person singular. By now you probably realize that the second person singular, it might be tricky. So here you're going to see the exact same thing. So to summarize then, here are the endings. And for the strong, if it's an omega verb, in the active, it's on, es, omen, ete, on. And if it's middle, omein, o, eta, ometha, estha, onta. Me verbs, just have nu, sigma, nothing, men, te, san. And in the middle, main, saw, ta, metha, th, ento. Now, the weak verbs, weak aorist verbs, whether they're omega or me, are going to have these same endings. So it's going to be as, the a, as, am, and ate, an. Amen, o, or aso, o, ata, amatha, astha, and tall. Okay, so that should help you streamline your memorization of the aorist.